So Jay's going back, and of course Kenny said, "I'm there," and I went, "No, you're not. There's no vehicle there." So,
You just see if they have some coffee up there.
I mean, you think it's a conspiracy? Y'all are here, and you're
I don't
high.
know how to make coffee, but
Brandy
you never
does.
know if they don't have coffee.
You got coffee
I
maker
got
and
a coffee
everything.
maker in
Got
here.
all that shit back.
I don't know how to do good coffee. I know how to use the coffee pods. I like
Now that's
coffee.
something Joyce does. She drinks coffee all damn day.
I'm cold.
I hope you like it black. No, she got creamer and all that shit. From Aldi's.
I've had it.
Doesn't
It's
matter to me.
damn.
I'm just cold. I get cold easy now.
Yeah, because you lost 100 pounds. All that insulation.
Looked at Kenny then. I never hear Kenny.
Well, I
talk.
was looking through Kenny over to you, Pat. That's why I was looking through
Kenny
Kenny
was
over
trying
to
to run
you.
that through your ear. Now, yeah. Since it was hollow, he thought that would be louder on this side.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Man.
funny.
You
Yeah.
mean you don't have a bleep-o-matic?
No, I don't have one of those bleep-o-matic things that'll bleep out the cuss words there, Pat.
Well, you
so-
got a delay. Look, I moved my hand.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a delay. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. You were saying it's May is the new March, huh?
Is what it seems like.
I don't know, man. The weather has been just schizophrenic weather. I feel like February was more stable
It was.
than what we've been dealing with the last month or so.
February into early March was
Yeah,
good fishing.
I'm not hearing you.
Are y'all going to do a?
Helps when your mic's on.
Are you going to do
there you
any
go.
kind of what should you do in the tournament since the?
I mean, you started a significant controversy on Facebook this week, Kenny.
Yeah, it
so
was
we might have to touch on it a little
Yeah,
bit.
it's just one of the local yokels.
Was this a
I didn't
particular
read-
tournament
I
fisherman
didn't read
that
what
was?
you were
No.
countering.
No.
No.
I read your blog, but I did not read what you were countering. What were they saying that you were doing wrong, or the guides were doing wrong? Keeping more fish than they did.
Yeah.
Hell.
They're the guides are the ones that's hurting the fishery.
We're the
And-
ones that wouldn't dare take 2/19. We'd lose our license,
Yeah.
even if we were criminal. You like the way I prefaced?
Yeah.
The way I ended that.
Per se.
Will they really take your license? Let's say you got a 14 and 7,
Oh, no,
15
they probably
16
fine us,
inch.
No.
But what the problem is, then when you accidentally have a client, like sometimes when I have 4 people on the boat,
Sure.
they help you put fish in the cooler.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
They throw a 14 in there,
Right.
and you show up, and that'd be your second violation.
Jeez,
Coast Guard can do what they want to do.
Yeah, I was curious. No, I don't ever risk it, but I was just curious if you did come in with one that was just like.
It's like $300.
Oh, is it just a it's a fine?
$310
Yeah.
you can get fined
Okay.
for one illegal fish. whether
Mandatory court appearance.
it's short. Huh?
Is it a mandatory court appearance now?
You'd have to answer that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
We all look over there.
I didn't. I didn't even.
I'm not that guy.
What were you gonna say, Matt? You didn't even what?
I didn't even know what the I threw back a 14.5 inch flounder the other day because I thought they changed it to 15. I was so upset about it. I didn't even ever learn it was a 14.
Yeah, it's 14 inches.
And the guy said, 15 inches, that's a pretty big one. And about that time, my brain went, it's 14. And I went, well, I'm not telling him.
Well, I'm not going to mention name, but someone we know threw one back because he thought it was 16.
God. Well, I just couldn't keep up with it because Billy and I used to catch them all the time. We
Yeah, it's 12 inches.
12, 12, 12. And
Right.
I just knew that it was ridiculous. They jumped it, and I didn't pay any attention.
Yeah.
Oh, I also didn't know that the grouper is September the 1st to
Yeah.
November the 10th.
Yeah, it's a super small window.
They shot it.
They-
They took the best of it.
They did.
December.
Yeah.
Billy and I used to
Yeah.
look forward to December, January, February. We caught more grouper in January and February than we did any other. No, I'll take that back. December, January is when Billy and I catch more.
Yeah. They
I
did.
used, I used to love January.
Well, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. We just kind of been BSing around here for the last few minutes. We had some an integral piece of our puzzle was left out of one of the bags, so that's why we were delayed getting started tonight. We want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Pat is a surprise show up. Not really, but we always enjoy when Pat was around, so you're like, just come hang out, Pat. As always, got Kenny Mullins right here, and I'm Captain Jay Carson as well. We were just talking about the weather and how, utterly ridiculous. I don't know of another way to put it. Utterly ridiculous.
Yeah.
It has been.
Yeah.
Really since mid-March, I feel like. All of April. Yeah. That's right, Justin. Better late than never. We're getting it done, man. We're getting it done. But why are we still getting weekly fronts?
It's ridiculous.
Why are we still getting? It's May and we're still getting weekly cold fronts.
That's Mother Nature is a woman.
It's ooh, we got some coffee showed up here.
Thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, we got a front coming through right now. It's supposed to be what? Low 50s next couple mornings.
Yep.
So it's just been, frustrating to deal with. The wind has been the biggest issue, I think. Wouldn't you agree? Obviously the wind, but also I guess the fluctuations in water temp too, right?
Last month we seen water temperatures hit the mid 80s, and this morning when I left out it was 69.
Well, and also you're having these big water temperature swings throughout the day as well. When you have a 10-degree water temperature swing from, dawn to late afternoon, that's a pretty big temperature change for, in that amount of time. What do you think? What do you think, Pat? You think it's the wind or the water temperature fluctuation?
I think that's why, if you remember last full moon, we were catching fish I started catching fish on the incoming, and then all of a sudden it flipped to the afternoon outgoing.
Yeah.
And I think it had more to do with the temperature warming back up into the mid 70s or low 70s than it did which way is the water going. Because the fish don't know which way the water's going. They don't care as long as the water's not getting colder. Well, the water's getting warmer when it goes out, plus the sun warmed the water up. So the ambient temperature where they were even before, here comes the warmer water that's shallower, and they're acting like winter trout because they don't want to be in 69-degree water.
Except one crucial part, they're not where the winter trout would be.
I know that, but
which is crazy.
They're going to act the same though about the temperature,
right?
Because I've had bites out there in 4, 5.5 feet of water, and those fish should not be there, but they act exactly like they did 6 weeks ago. And that is, we're waiting on this warm water, and we're not going to move until it happens. And always the incoming tide is colder water.
Yep.
Yeah. Opposed to that too in the morning, when we have those early morning lows and you have those cold temperatures in the morning, that shallow water cools off quicker. Yep. So, if you have a little bit of an outgoing or whatever, that it's just been weird.
Well, I think the fact that it's inhibited the bait migrate to come to us. We're not getting the white bait, migratory white bait that we're supposed to. We were just talking before we got on air about tarpon and how we've all seen tarpon, and the tarpon are here, but there's no food for those tarpon. And so we wonder, what are they doing here?
Yeah.
How did they get here if they didn't follow the bait here?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a whole another topic to dive into. But as far as like, I mean, there's bait around. So I was telling these guys, Pat, before I had to go get that thing that we were missing, that if you run out 12, 14 feet of water, there's a ton of bait out there, like just giant pods of it. I was out
Just not coming in.
running crab pots, looking for triple tail the other day, and
How'd that go?
We had a few shots. We were fly fishing for them, and I think I ran probably like 50 pots or something like that, and saw 3 fish. So it wasn't great, but
It's a little early.
but there was we pulled up on some pots and had a couple of fly shots, and couldn't get one of them to eat or cooperate, but we still had a good time. I was hoping to see a few more than we saw, but it is what it is.
I just wondered if any were out there because they're pulling all the traps on end of season.
Yeah. I mean, there's still a few. Stone crab season runs till May 15th, so right, May 15th and
May 1st.
Oh, is it May 1st?
They have to have them all
May
out by the
1st.
3rd.
Oh, okay. I was wrong
That's
on that one.
tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, this was about a week ago, so.
Yeah.
But anyway, what the point of that story was I was just running over bait pod after bait pod after bait pod out there. It was pretty crazy
Did you
how
try
much
to
bait
catch
was
a
out
trout out there to see if they
there.
were
I didn't. There was, there's not much grass in about 15 feet of water. So
Hey,
I've been catching them on
If
sand.
there's food, they may not
yeah,
care.
that's true. That's true.
Well, 3.5 weeks ago, going under the bridge, the little shortcut right here,
Mhm.
there was probably, I don't know, hundreds, maybe close to 1,000 greenbacks hanging under that bridge. They're gone. I mean, I could have netted them right there.
Where are you talking about?
At Keaton.
The Keaton Bridge?
Yeah.
Like the little shortcut?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Oh, it was loaded with
Interesting.
greenbacks.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's like
Well, we had ballyhoo a month ago. Where'd they go?
yeah, I don't
I
know.
saw some ballyhoo south this morning.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some smaller ones. I saw but it's
not-
like not a lot.
Not big
No,
schools.
we're
No.
not seeing
no.
schools.
There was schools of them a month
No,
ago.
it's like a few here and there.
Well, they've been eaten. I mean, I would say it's pretty easy to guess that they've been eaten because there's not enough of them.
Well, I think the problem that we're having is we just can't get some consistently stable weather. If we could ever get some consistently stable weather where these fish should just fall into a pattern where they're not moving around all over the place all the time, because I feel like that's what they're doing.
They're scattered everywhere.
They're just moving around all over the place. They're and if we could get some of that consistently stable weather, quit getting these cold fronts, we might be able to get them a little bit more consistently dialed. It's weird, because like we've all probably had this experience where you go out maybe 2 days in a row, or a day, or a couple days, and it's like you hammer them.
Yep.
You get them dialed in, you catch your limit or whatever, and you hammer them, and then all of a sudden we get one of these things that comes through, whatever the heck they are, and you spend a couple days trying to figure it out again.
Oh, I was on the reds, like unreal big, giant reds. I mean, day after day after day. Then front comes in, bam, gone.
Yeah.
Can't find them.
Yeah, I think some of that. I mean,
They're still here.
I think they're starting to get it. Like, there's some spots that people are really starting to hammer them on, too, that are starting to get really fished hard.
Yep.
And I think that's making those fish hard to catch, too,
Yeah. Well,
and moving them around.
they pushed out. I do know that, and once they pushed out, they're getting harder to stay on top of.
Yeah, they're getting moved out of there where they want to be.
Yep.
Yeah.
They probably ate all the food where they were. If it's that big a school with that big a fish, those big fish, pretty fish you were catching, they got to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They got to eat.
Well, and they also, I mean, if you're, comfortable in a place, but you're constantly getting harassed, even if there's
Ran
food in
over.
there, ran over,
Circles.
yeah.
And
I mean,
donuts.
you're not going to want to, stay in that spot if you're continually getting harassed all the time.
Y'all need to come buy some of this Krabby coffee up here.
But so I think it's a combination of things. A combination of the weird weather we've had, the added pressure from the tournaments that we've been having every weekend.
Multiple tournaments every weekend.
So it's just kind of got things off a little bit. Not that we haven't been catching fish, because I went out last Wednesday afternoon and caught 50 redfish in 4 hours.
Oh yeah.
So it's not like there's not opportunity and we're not catching fish. It's just
Have you caught 50 trout in 4 hours?
No,
Yeah.
no.
You don't limit out every day.
Not every day. No. I mean, no, it hadn't been slam bam every day. That's for sure. But I guess let's talk about what has been working. I mean, that's what we're on here to do, is talk a little bit about what trends and patterns that we've been, kind of finding success. Well, also
following the tournament boats has been successful.
We'll come back to that in a minute, Kenny. We'll come back to that in a minute.
Hey, you said well, let's talk about what's been successful.
I mean, Pat, are you seeing any kind of a pattern right now that you can consistently, kind of zero in on?
Yeah, a couple of obvious or basics. If I've got a sunshine and I've got a decent breeze, it doesn't have to be blowing like it was just today, which I love that, kicking 15 plus. I love it with bait, but I can catch fish on the plastic. I had the same two guys 70, 72 years old. The first day we went out, we could not catch fish on bait. I caught 2 fish shallow on Assassin Violet Moon and then moved out, hit 2 or 3 places. I couldn't get a cork to go down, couldn't give a pinfish away, couldn't give a cut bait away. So I went on to find as darkest water I could find, which, by the way, now we need to talk about the dark water because it's magnificent out there now.
It's dark.
But anyway, we caught 8 of our 10 trout on plastic on Assassin Violet Moon, and I think we had 1 on Northern Minnow. All right. Anyway, the sun was shining. We had a 5 to 10 mile an hour breeze. The next day, we had an overcast. I said, "Wonderful. This plastic, we're going to kill them." Never caught a fish. I threw plastic the whole time. I had plenty of bait. I didn't have to catch bait. Every fish we caught, same crew. The front was on the way. You should have been able to catch every trout on there.
You were pre-front.
Terrible orange, ball that came first.
You were fishing pre-front.
Hand of God type of storm, and could not catch a fish on artificial. Everything on bait.
And that was the day I caught them on artificial. The day before I did.
You were down south.
Yep.
You were south of me.
Yeah.
But I could not get, and I went through 12 colors. Nothing. Couldn't even get the pinfish to eat the glitter out of them. So it's pretty hard to pattern one day to the next when the conditions change. Yesterday it was blowing 30 with 40 mile an hour gusts.
Yes. Oh my
Today
gosh.
I didn't have a sufficient breeze to drift. I was sitting in the same place
until this afternoon.
Crabbing. Yeah, I was crabbing sideways until 12:30.
And then it like somebody took the lid off, and it's blowing out there right now, probably 30.
Well, I had 2 fish at 1:30 and ended up with a 10 nice trout. And
after the wind kicked up.
3 overs.
Yeah, nice.
That we threw back.
Yeah. And that was on plastics or bait?
That was on bait.
Yeah. Pinfish?
Yes.
Yeah. It's funny because I ran a trip the other couple of weeks, and I don't fish a lot of bait, but I had some people on the boat that, I had some kids, and I wanted to make sure that they caught some fish, so I had a live well full of shrimp.
You're not the straight purist?
I do very occasionally, But I was fishing. I wasn't fishing pinfish, but I did have some shrimp, and I could not catch. I think I caught 1 trout on shrimp all day, and we switched over and started throwing soft plastics, and it was like bam, bam, bam. One.
I've been doing better on soft plastics.
So I mean,
and some days doing good on cut bait.
Yeah, I mean it's weird. It's nothing's been consistent.
Nothing's consistent. You gotta have everything. I threw the whole tackle box this morning.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. You throw the tackle box at him after a while?
Yeah, I pretty much did. It was frustrating.
Yeah, I think we've all kind of had those days here lately. I was on that day that you and I were in there in that one spot, and there was all those fish in there, and we could not get them to eat.
Couldn't get them to eat.
Eat nothing.
There was hundreds.
And it was ridiculous. So I guess to kind of wrap up that little segment, I mean, we're still catching them on soft plastics.
Yeah.
Just be varied, I guess, in your arsenal.
I'll tell you this.
Go out there with a little bit of everything.
One thing I've been doing if I know the fish are there and they're just not eating, I'm sticking with it. Because I bounce around, move around, they're still not eating. They got to eat.
They're going to turn on at some point. Yeah.
I've just been hanging with it.
Yeah.
And then everyone, their brother comes in on top of me, and I let them come in. They see that they're not going to catch anything. They leave, and when bite turns on them, still there.
Yeah. It does seem like we've had those days where it's like at some point in the day they will, turn on, whether it's if it's for just an hour or what, but they will bite at some point.
Was it last week, Pat? You pulled up next to me, and I seen you made about one drift, and you were gone. You came back about 2 hours later. I was still right there. I didn't catch a daggum thing that whole 2 hours, but when you came back, they were on. You know what I'm talking about, right?
No, I'm too tired. I don't remember what day it was. What day is it now? Tuesday?
I don't even know what is today.
It's Tuesday.
That's right. We're doing the show.
No, it was Saturday. It was
Yeah.
Saturday.
But anyway, so I guess, like I said, to kind of sum up, what are we saying? 2 to 6 feet, something like that, because depending on what the weather is that day.
I caught slot trout in 1 foot today.
So I mean,
numerous of them.
yeah, and then
But you were throwing top water. You
Right.
got to tell that.
Right.
yeah,
You weren't throwing soft plastics in
No.
a foot of water.
No.
But no, I wanted to say something about depth.
go ahead.
I found that if it's tough, I step it out past 4.5 and fish 5.5, 6 feet, and I have caught fish on the days I can't get a bite in the 3.5, 4 range. Now today, everything I caught was never over 4.5. It was 3.5 to 4.5. But we had a substantial breeze. We had color. The water color came back. That, what you would expect to see out there this week after that 30 and 40 mile an hour 2 days of wind is turbid, torn up water, too dirty, just catfish. But no, everywhere there was good hard stain, you still had clarity within the stain.
Yep.
And it's beautiful. It's perfect from about Warrior Rack north. The color is what I'd live for as far as dark water. And, I went out and went past that stain and caught fish this afternoon. I needed 3 fish, and I left that stain. When the breeze came up, they seemed to shut down on it. And bang, I'm back on fish again in 4.5 to 5.5 foot of water.
Back in the clear water.
Cleaner water.
Cleaner.
Yeah,
Cleaner.
clear.
Cleaner.
It still got stain,
Yeah,
but yeah,
cleaner.
much clearer than what it was before.
Yeah, because if you got inside that closer to the shore, I mean, it was like mud.
Oh yeah, it was super dark, but it was coffee colored. It was
Right.
It was
Right.
coffee with no cream, and I expected to see debris and
Right.
whatever.
The
you wanna call
particulate.
It was
matter.
clean.
Dirty.
I mean-
yeah, it was clean, but like you said, it was a double, what I call double black coffee. There
Yeah.
was no cream. It
Yeah.
was.
I like that tannic water. So we got some questions starting to come in, and they all seem to be related to cobia. So we'll kind of jump on those here in a minute. Before we get to those questions, let's just touch on redfish. I think redfish has been a lot easier here, especially in the last couple weeks. Consistently easier. I'll say. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Would you agree?
I
with
agree.
that?
I agree.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm like, we're starting to see. Hey, what's up, Michael Ammon? Jimmy Wagner, Steve Wingate. I see you guys. We're gonna get to those questions here in just a minute. I appreciate y'all hopping in.
I've got some stuff on that.
But what I was gonna say is redfish is starting to get right like it should have been 3-4 weeks ago. I feel like.
I don't think it's still right.
It's getting there though.
It's getting better.
It's getting there. I mean, I hadn't had any, like I was telling you, I went out last Wednesday, afternoon trip, and we caught 50 in 4 hours. And I say 50, and I'm being, like, not trying to sound, but that was probably a generous or a low estimate. And I hadn't had any days like that this year. That was the first day that I'd had like that. When I've had them before, late April in previous years. So I say that to say it's getting right.
What do you attribute that day to? What were the conditions?
It was beautiful. I mean, we had light winds, little southwest breeze, a decent evening high tide. I like a
Clear skies.
late evening high tide. We fished from probably like 3 to 7 in the afternoon.
All right. Low light.
Low light, fishing structure, and every piece of structure I pulled up on I had to fish 3 spots. I literally power pulled down 3 times and didn't move for 4 hours. So.
And you probably didn't even have to move because I've been
I
staying in one
move.
spot and just whacking them.
Yeah, I didn't have to move, and like I said, I mean, that's the first time that I had one of those kind of days this year, where previous years, it's a lot. It usually happens a lot more often.
What depth was it, Jay?
It was probably. Hey, Brandy, will you press the button up there? It was high tides. And it was probably like 3.5, 4 feet, something like that.
Okay.
But I wasn't far off the grass line. I mean, I wasn't right up on it, but I was, off of it a little bit. Now, some of the fish are right up on the grass line. You can take a section of grass line in some of our areas right now and just go trolling motor right down the grass line and throw gold spoons, and you're going to catch redfish.
But one thing I've noticed, there's a lot more rock grass in some of these popular areas.
Yeah.
And I'm not catching them in that rock grass.
No, they're not in the rock grass.
I was telling Pat,
Yep.
Pat and I had this conversation last week.
Mm-hmm.
They're not in it.
And they, in the past, this time of year in April, they would be in there.
Right.
And they'd break your arm to hit a spinner bait. I caught them on the willow leaf bait that Bill Hall made, the precision tackle called Cajun Flash, which was nothing but a jig spinner with a big blade. And they would just come up out of there and blast it like a bass coming off of 20 feet off the bottom to hit a topwater.
I don't know. It seems like so that, remember that day that you and I went up a couple weeks ago?
Yep.
And you were saying how there's a lot more rock grass in here than what I realized. We were catching them in there, but the last few weeks I've been up there, it hasn't been as good.
No.
They're not in there like
they weren't there this morning.
Yeah, they aren't in there because I didn't catch them in there this past weekend. Now
It's probably
Saturday.
Yeah, I didn't catch my fish in there. So somebody saw me in there. I didn't catch my fish in there.
any food.
You were. I'm not going to say where you were, but I know where you were.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's weird. It's like that rock grass came in thick right there, and the fish has kind of moved out of that little area. I don't know. I'm catching them in areas where there's not as much rock grass now.
It's.
But that being said, you can go and you can work a section of shoreline on a decent tide with topwater gold spoons, and you're going to catch fish. So that would probably be if you're looking at target.
Except for this morning.
You had interesting weather.
Man.
I mean, the weather the last couple
I got
days
my butt handed to me.
has been tough to deal with. But Pat, you've been catching a few redfish
Today, for the first time,
Yeah.
I fished 6 straight days without spooking one,
Yeah.
much less catching
Yeah.
one. But now I didn't go every day.
right?
Each day that I went, the next day I said I'm not going to go chase them, and I just spent my time on trout, and we were catching some outsized, some overslots, and that was a big deal to a couple of my clients.
Yeah.
I just stayed with the trout.
Yeah.
Now if I had an hour or two, got my limit of trout, then I would go do it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't producing for me. But I wasn't going in on the tides y'all can go.
For sure.
Right.
Well, I mean, really, like what I've noticed is to catch decent numbers of fish, fishing any type of structure in like 3 to 4 feet of water, depending on the tide, has been the most productive. So if you got a low tide and you got a piece, a rock pile or whatever, which I'm sure you probably got plenty of spots out there that where that kind of type of bottom is.
I hit a lot in 6 days,
Yeah.
and I
didn't.
hadn't even scared of spooked one.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I've had a lot of redfish trips recently, and
Well, Kenny's not been in. He's been. I'm not going to say where he was, but he was not in the water that I was catching my trout in, and I'm not going to run 12, 15 miles
Sure.
with a chance of catching a red when
Sure.
I'm catching decent fish.
Yeah,
no
Not
doubt.
trout. That's been my problem. I'm not in the neighborhood. You texted me one day and said, "Have fun. I'm too far away."
Kevin, good evening. Appreciate you showing up, man. Thanks for joining us. So, I guess that kind of wraps up our trout redfish. You want to talk about what direction would you like to go in next? We want to touch on the cobia thing here.
I think we should, because I've been getting a lot of
lot
phone
of
calls,
questions,
a lot of text
questions.
messages, a lot of private messages on social media, because a couple of people
There's
have caught a cobia
Yep.
and taken a picture with the same cobia with 3 or 4 different people, making it look like there's just been a ton of cobia caught.
There's really not that many around. There's a few around. I saw some.
Yeah, there's definitely a few.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a couple shorts this morning.
Yeah. I fished some very well-known cobia spots last week, and we caught a short and saw a couple more shorts in the water.
Yeah,
but,
but it's
no
not.
keepers.
They're not thick. It's not what people are thinking.
Mm-mm.
And even one of the people that caught one and had several pictures floating around of the same fish said, "Hey, we were not targeting it. It was just a bycatch, just a fluke. Just they were trout fishing. And now I do know a couple people who has caught 2 targeting them. But again, I mean, these are good fishermen. They're good cobia fishermen, and they're not just stacking them up.
Yeah.
Well, they're not here because there's no Spanish here. The Spanish follow the bait, and the cobia follow the Spanish.
Well, let me tell you, there is a bunch of Spanish in 15 feet of water.
Well, then
That's
they
where the
need to
cobia-
go- Then that's where the cobia
Yeah,
are.
there is
because
a bunch
the
of Spanish
food-
in 15 feet of water.
That cobia's got to feed up heavy, come in, they get around structure, they pair up. They're not interested in eating a lot of times when they're on that structure, and they'll get on the poles and the bird racks, and then they'll pair up, is what they're trying to do, and then go out on the flats and spawn once they pair up.
I had a day. It was 2 weeks ago. There's an I don't know what it's called, but there's an area out there that's got some structure on it. There's a ton of bait on it, and we just started trolling around that bait, and you couldn't go 2 minutes without picking up a big Spanish. And I'm talking like 25, 30-inch Spanish mackerel, big ones.
Now those Spanish were in a few weeks ago, and then I guess they pushed back out with the bait.
There's a
one
bunch,
of these fronts.
There's a bunch of Spanish in about 15 feet of water.
We caught a 30-inch Spanish on the grass line 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's a good fish. So I mean, there's bait out there. There's Spanish out there. I'm guessing that's a good point, Pat. That they could just be hanging out there. Plus, the water temp's not. I mean, it's okay.
It's not what
they
want to spawn in.
what they
wanna spawn
prefer.
in about 75 degrees.
Right, 75 to 78 degrees.
That's what I understand.
Yeah.
And about the time it gets there, we have another front.
Yeah, so it's been, it's kind of been holding it back. I always considered May cobia month anyway. So,
Well, if you remember, 3 years ago we had a really good cobia run. The last 2 years and now this year, we're having these late fronts, and the bait's late. Right now we're kind of similar to what we were 2 years ago. The water temp stayed low for a long time, but we've had a whole lot more wind this year than we did that year.
Yeah.
We had a good summer redfish 2 years ago. I mean, I was catching redfish all the way consistently, stacking them up all the way through July, into August. And I'm thinking we're probably going to have a year like that this year, but
it does seem like everything was pushed back. But I mean, I guess if you're trying to go out and cobia, Justin Ayer says cobia hasn't been good on this side either this year yet, and he lives over near Jacksonville, so he's talking about East Coast. So, but I guess if somebody is trying to go out and catch a cobia, I would say that your best bet is 5 to 7 to 10 feet of water.
I think the best bet is to trout fish and have a rod out the back with a pinfish on
Big
it.
pinfish, yeah, for sure. Unless you have, some type of structure or something that that they're holding
Or a
on.
blue crab.
Now, today I did see a lot of big turtles that I haven't seen. I've probably seen 6 or 8 big turtles,
Like the big giant ones?
big giant ones.
No, that is new. I hadn't
Yeah,
seen it. I
today
hadn't
was
seen
the
any
first
turtles.
day. Today was
I
the
haven't
first
seen
day.
any turtles even.
Oh, I've been seeing quite a few turtles.
But mostly the small ones.
Yeah.
I saw some big ones today.
Yeah.
And of course I had to check out every
And I
one
hadn't
of them.
been seeing, it's weird on the big rays that usually start to show up, too.
I
on
seen
the
some
redfish.
today.
It's like they'll be there one day and then they won't. They hadn't been consistent, so I look
No.
for them to start to be a little bit more consistent, too.
If the water temps will.
Yeah, cooperate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kevin White says, and let me. Oh. Do you want to talk about that now? It's up to you.
That's fine. Obviously a lot of people seen it.
Yeah. So, Kevin, let's real quick just scroll up. So I guess we're gonna start to tackle some of these questions in the comment section. There's a fair amount of people in here right now too. So if you've got a question that you would like us to touch on before we kind of wrap up here in the next several minutes, please get those questions in now. We'll start to touch on those. Michael Hammond says the puffers are showing up too now.
I haven't caught one.
I
yet.
haven't seen one yet either. But that doesn't mean they're not out there.
What?
Puffers.
Why would you want to talk about puffers?
Because that's A-man for you. That's he's the king of puffer fish. Joel's got the king of catfish, so A-man's going for the king of puffers.
We, like I said, we had a couple questions about catching cobia. Mike Marquise was one of them. Sorry, forgive me for butchering your last name there, Mike. Like he said, with those picks you referenced already.
Right. And they weren't trying to be dishonest because, like I said, the guy even got on there and said, hey, it's one fish that we accidentally caught.
Yeah, and then Jimmy Wagner says, I'd love to get on a cobia next time I'm down there. Any recommendations to the area? And
Yeah,
Steve,
wait till June.
But you know what? While we're on it, someone did comment on a post that I made yesterday on our group. Wanted to know, like, maybe we should talk about baits and lures to target them because, obviously some people are interested. I already mentioned pinfish is a good choice.
I would say pinfish. As far as all my big fish have come on pinfish.
Eels.
You can take that big gulp eel and drag it behind the boat and catch a cobia.
So get this. So one of the guys that I had this past week, we were out targeting cobia, and the cobia that we wind up catching that day was blind casted, believe it or not. We were just in an area that I kind of knew where they like to hang out.
Yeah.
And he was just blind casting around that area. And he had rigged up a big popper, topwater surface bait. And then about 2.5 feet behind it, he had a trailer, an eel on a jig head, like a gulp eel on a jig head. And he wound up catching that fish on that popper. It's like a giant hopper dropper. If you ever, mountain fly fish, a hopper dropper is like you got a surface fly with a nymph hanging under it, but it was kind of something similar to that. Caught that cobia on. I thought that was interesting.
Savage makes a really, really good looking eel. Hoagies,
Yeah, but I mean, as far as like it seems like I catch the smaller fish on artificials.
Yeah.
The bigger fish come on live bait.
Yeah.
All my keeper, 40+ inch cobia have come on pinfish. So take that information, what you will, with it. But yeah, I mean, like all of those things work. And then, when you're trying to sight fish one, a lot of times you don't have a pinfish rigged up, so you have to throw whatever you have on them. I mean, I know people have caught them on topwater plugs.
Oh, yeah.
Bucktails. If you get a fish that's fired up, he's going to eat whatever you put in front of him.
Right.
He'll eat a crab.
Yeah.
He'll eat
blue crab
over a pinfish.
Yeah.
And the reason he'll do that early in the season, which we have to consider this early in the season, is because he comes from Tampa following the Spanish, and he's eating whatever he can as he follows that bait, and he sees a lot of past crabs, and he hadn't seen a pinfish. And he doesn't know what a pinfish is until he comes in and hits the bank, pairs up, and stays for a couple of weeks on the flats. I have caught them on black sea bass and crabs for years when they would not take a pinfish. They'll follow a hooked trout to the boat or a hooked bastard fish, whatever. I mean, a ladyfish or whatever. And they want that big ladyfish. These are big cobia. These are 45, 50, 60-pound fish. And you can throw all the pinfish and the small baits you want to him. And what he wants is that trout or that ladyfish or that black sea bass. And if you can get it to him before he just realizes you're in a boat and you're whatever, he's yours. Yeah. But he doesn't want, and he'll eat a crab. He'll break your arm for a crab.
You see one laid up and break a blue crab in half and get that sending out there?
I use them live.
Coming. Oh, yeah, they work live.
I'm not saying he won't, but he's eating crabs as he migrates up the coast when he can't catch up to the chopped up stuff that the Spanish are chopping up. And the reason he wants a black bass is because when the Spanish run that bait and it gets over that dark bottom, what's down there? Rock. And who comes up to get the manna from heaven that the Spanish are chopping up? The black sea bass. And who eats the black sea bass? The ling, the cobia.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's why if you can catch you a legal sized black sea bass and you got him in that live well, when he shows up, he's yours.
Steve Wingate, and I don't know that this makes any difference to what we were talking about, but he says any tips on catching cobia around Cedar Island area. I mean, that's pretty much Keaton, right? I mean,
yeah.
So, I think the same tips apply for all of the area that we're fishing.
They can go out to the old decal rack.
That thing gets checked 50 times a day.
Oh yeah, there was someone anchored up on it today.
It doesn't mean that he won't show up.
Yeah, well, no, I agree. You just have to catch it right.
And the
you
old marker 20 has 2 boat moles. If you have the number of the old marker 20, you can drop a bait in there and one will break your arm.
Yeah. All right, so I guess we got some other questions starting to come in, guys. If you guys see this is on the cobia thing, so it's Mark C. I gotcha. Mark C. All right. Mark C. He says if I see a big ray, I toss a white fluke at him, and the biggest cobia I ever caught was on a small ladyfish on the first channel marker right off the Keaton jetty. That was mid-June.
Yep. About
So,
right.
It's about time to see them.
Yeah. The big ones, yeah. You know, it's funny. When you first see, like, the biggest one I've ever seen was the first cobia I ever saw, like, 3 years ago, and it was, like, the last week of March. Or no, last week of April. I'm sorry. Last week of April was the biggest one I ever seen.
We fought one for, what was that, Brandy, about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. I mean, a big one, and it was last week of April.
Yeah. I'm going to
Don't
hold
see
off.
that happening. Well, it didn't happen this year.
I'm going to hold off on Kevin White's question here for just a second. Nate Laskowitz is coming in, chiming in from Swanee. He says the water is dirty down in Swanee area.
It's definitely dirty.
I'm sure
down
it's
there.
probably because of the wind. I mean, the wind has been brutal, and so it's probably there's less grass down there.
Which is
so
always dirty there. But
yeah, but that
it's
wind
even
is
more dirty.
even more so. He said he had a shark chasing fish around his boat today while fishing for trout. I think the water's a little warmer down there around Swanee too, because for whatever reason, what you wouldn't think it's not that far south, but it has made a difference.
Well, you got to remember too. It's always darker, a lot more dark mud, a lot of structure.
Yeah. Aaron Hubert says I'm ready for tarpon. Saw a few in East Pass last weekend. I'm guessing that's over at St. George.
Swanee.
Swanee. Yeah, I know there's some fish down that way. They have more fish down that way currently.
They have more resident fish
than
too.
we do. They do that. They do have more resident fish. All right, so let's go back up here. Kevin White says, so there was a discussion online earlier in the week that pretty much pointed the finger at charter captains limiting out every trip and depleting the fisheries. Would you care to elaborate on that?
So,
and what? What was the second part of
depleting the fisheries.
Depleting the fishery. We can't keep our fish, folks. What in the hell's wrong with
So,
you?
so I'll tell you. I'll give you the backstory.
Give
on
them
that.
the backstory.
So
ridiculous.
We have a lot of tournaments in our area.
They're
a lot.
They're depleting the fish.
And I don't. So I happen to make a comment. I would really like to see more of these tournaments go to a catch photo release on these big trout.
Yeah, especially for the big ones.
And it's a win-win for everyone. You got your breeders being released back out because if you're truly a tournament fisherman, you're chasing that prize and that title, that prize money and that title. You don't care about eating that fish for the most part. You didn't enter a tournament to put fish in the freezer.
In the cooler, right?
So it'll do two things. You're going to release those fish, and make sure you handle them properly. But you're going to release those fish that can breed, because those over 20-inch fish, they produce approximately 20 million eggs a spawning season. That's huge.
It's a lot.
And so on the other side, for the tournament guys, if you are legitimate and you were doing everything legal by the book, you get one fish. You can't upgrade. You can't. I mean, a trout just does not survive in a live well. So, if they go to more catch, photo, release, you can upgrade your fish.
The other thing, can I interrupt you a minute?
Yeah, go ahead.
If you know how the three of us know how the kayak tournaments are run. You know, they got a token, you got a measuring board, or you've got both that is provided by the tournament, and you know, for $5-10 more for the fee, it covers the materials. But the point is, quit keeping a 24-inch trout when there's 4 27s on the mark. What you do is you get online. I mean, you get online, or you call in. I have a 28 1/4, because the guy in the other boat doesn't know you have a 28 1/4 inch trout, so he keeps a 26. So 40, 50 teams come in with fish, and 35 of them could have let the fish go, and they caught it because the 28 was probably caught at daybreak anyway.
Right.
But all you got to do is call the marina, or have it on a call basis. Have it where you call the marina and the recording says the current size caught fish is so and so, and then everybody that catches one shorter is out, because we're not weighing them anymore. We're measuring them.
Right.
So the longest fish wins, and you don't keep the fish.
Yeah.
It's too simple to quit killing big fish for tournaments out of sea hag or steenhatchee. Everybody knows that sea hag's holding them all. That's the only reason I've said it. I'm not trying to criticize sea hag, but those tournaments that are being held are killing fish for no reason.
Right.
We don't need to see 35 pictures of losing fish.
Right.
We could bring in the biggest. And if you start at 27 and he keeps his, and then guy catches 27.5, he keeps his, we might keep 5 to 10 trout instead of 100.
But even then, with today's technology, why even bring in that 27, 28-inch
Well,
fish?
I
picture of
agree,
it,
but
yeah.
if the guy has the winning fish when he brings it in, and so everybody got to prove that he caught it, that's okay. But you don't need to bring in 30 26-inch fish when there's a 28 that's already got the money.
Well, you look at the redfish tournaments now. I mean,
Yeah, they're all CPR. They're either CPR or they're live well catch and release.
right, but
Tournaments, yeah.
and a redfish can handle that.
Yes,
But, you know,
yeah.
you and I were sitting right there when Chris Harwood got a phone call from a potential sponsor, and one of the questions was,
Is it a kill tournament?
is it a kill tournament?
Right.
And the next question was, what is the release rate?
Yeah.
What is the successful
What is the
release rate?
statistics on successful releases? Yeah.
You know, so within the industry, you know, these sponsors are trying to promote more release.
Sure.
You know, and trout especially, because we all know they're delicate. They're very delicate fish.
Especially the big fish.
You know, and they're producing so much more eggs than a slot trout. You know, it's significant once they reach that point. It's, I mean, you know, you've cut open slot trout, you've cut open big over slot trout. There's a lot more eggs.
Yeah.
Well, the number of eggs is less important than the gene possibility. The genetics of that larger fish
Well, that too.
should mean that fish can produce another 28. And when you have a 16-inch fish, the potential's there, but you have no idea that fish would ever get to be 28 inches.
So that's where this conversation started, and someone chimed in and said that basically
Guys were more harmful to
Yeah,
the
guys
to the
were more
fishery
harmful.
because we go out and limit out every day.
No, we have the fortunate capacity to have generally a little more educated clientele than the average woohoo tourist who's out there killing everything and keeping the ones they want to keep at the end of the day.
Right.
Now we can state up front when we start at the dock before we start fishing. Now, folks, today we're going to release everything over 20, 21, whatever you
Exactly.
want to state. If you say
Exactly.
19, fine. It doesn't
Yep.
matter. That's the state's rule. But, you know, we're going to keep one fish today over 20 because that's the rule. That's what I've done so that I don't have anger. I don't have people upset. I don't have people who don't want to fish with me anymore because I didn't inform them. So not only is it educational to tell them the rules in the state, we're going to have one per, but if we're not going to keep any over, if it's a time of year like this should be, you know, I tell them, look, we're not going to keep the biggest fish we catch today. We're going to release it.
Mm-hmm.
And if and 98% of the people,
Well,
probably even 99,
they're happy with it.
you explain to them the reason why, and they're in agreement.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, the personal best is so much crap. It's still the personal best, regardless of where it lives or dies. It's still your best fish, so let it go.
Yeah, take the measurements like I did for that big redfish. You know, it was 41 inches and 26.5 inches of girth. Got good pictures. That's all the taxidermist needs if you want taxidermy.
Well, a soft seamstress tape that, like the old yellow ones that like my mother used to use to sew with, is a hell of a lot easier to take overboard, drop it in the water, pull it out, and measure that fish. You don't have to bring it in the boat, you know, and you don't have to make the fish be straight on a damn ruler on top of a cooler and drop it 6 times.
Right.
Yeah, I just think that the kill tournaments need to reevaluate what they're doing, because like we were talking about, Kenny, you know, in our text conversation on this past weekend when you had Rock the Dock, which is a kill tournament.
Yep.
You had a tournament out of Seenhatchee, which was a kill tournament. There was probably more trout over 25 inches killed in that one day than maybe in the entire month of what.
And I'll tell you what got me fired up. I seen 2 mid 20-inch fish on the bottom. Now, you know, my mind, and it was an assumption. I'm not going to say it was an accurate assumption, but you know, we have things that run through our mind. My mind was someone called that fish. You know, maybe not. Maybe they caught it and tried to release it and it died. But that's what went through my mind at the time.
Right. You mean like in a fish box or in a?
No, laying on the bottom.
Oh, laying on the bottom while I was fishing.
Oh, I got you. Oh, you saw dead fish
Right.
laying on the bottom. Oh,
right.
Okay. Yeah, I was not aware of that. Yeah, that'll anger you.
Oh
sure.
yeah, it had me fired up.
I'm sure that I would have been fired up too.
And like I said, my assumption may have been wrong, but at the time, that's what went through my head, and we've all had that happen at some point.
Well, again, I'm gonna say it again. If you're in a tournament, everybody says, "Well, how do you handle a tie?" Real simple. First fish weighed wins.
That's right. First fish. That's how they do it.
First 28 weighed in wins.
Wins.
If you wait to the last minute to get there, like
Right.
some of these people like to be so cute and hang on to their fish to the last minute, hey, they don't win.
Yeah.
You got to get in there, weigh the fish in, and boom.
Well, that's the
First
nice
one-
thing about the CPR tournaments, Pat, is because you get a timestamp for that photo.
right.
And so if you have that timestamp photo, you are the first one to
right.
catch that fish.
And you can't alter
then
that.
you can't alter that. There's
Well,
no
you
way
can-
to
you
fix
can do
that.
a time stamp, or you can do the first one to the weigh-in.
Sure.
I mean, it's easier to do
There's
the first
there's
one
multiple
in.
ways to do it other than
But
what's
what
being done.
you know,
right
what
now,
we're
yeah.
what I was trying to say, trying to promote is don't bring it to a weigh-in. There's no reason. We got technology today. You know when that fish was caught. You got rulers.
Yeah.
You know, you can token, you know, whatever to prove that it, you know. But today's technology.
Well, and I think we're a little bit more kind of in this mode of because you know we haven't been seeing as good of trout fishing this spring as it normally is on average, you know, as consistent. And so, you know, maybe that's one of the things that kind of has us a little bit, because between the three of us, we're out there. I mean, probably between the three of us 7 days a week.
oh yeah, yeah.
You know, and so we're seeing it on a day-to-day basis.
And I'm not trying to beat up tournament fishermen because they're just doing what the tournament
within the rules.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
They're
it's-
participating. They're having fun. They're going out. They're having a good time, and they're operating within the rules of the tournament. Which I mean, hey,
and
it is what
within
it
the
is.
rules of the state guidelines.
Right.
And can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
The most absurd aspect of what people argue with Kenny about is just ignorant. Here's what's wrong with saying that the guides are doing more damage. Number one, the guys that are fishing these circuits, these tournaments, if y'all would pay attention and write it down, there's 50 people fishing all those tournaments that are winning and that are more educated and better anglers than anyone that gets on my boat.
Yep.
And their capacity, their ability, their capabilities, I'm just real tired. Their capabilities are way above our average angler that is hiring us. If someone hires us, 90% of them or 80% of them don't own a boat. So they don't have the experience that these tournament anglers have.
Right.
And they'll catch more fish in 3 weekends than I'll catch all year and kill. The more fish over 20 over the slot than I'll kill all year.
Well,
All year.
There's no big secret. Michael Aman is a solid tournament fisherman and
But
big trout fisherman. So I asked him. I said, Michael, how many big trout do you catch on the average tournament day? He said, well, it depends on the time of year. Anywhere from 5 to 40 over slot trout.
That's right.
Over 20-inch trout.
Now, just
Most people isn't going to catch that in a year.
cut that down to a quarter. If the average angler fishing those tournaments, which are better anglers than get on a guide boat, okay? And I'm not saying this necessarily for Jay. Uh-oh.
We're good. You still have sound, so keep going.
I'm
You
not
are slacking on
necessarily
your job,
saying
Randy.
that for Jay's people because they want to fly fish. And if a guy's wanting to fly fish, he's going to have better skills. It's just like a bow fisherman has better skills than a guy with a 30-06 blowing a deer away. But the point of the game here is to criticize guides, any of them, any of us, for killing more fish than the general public. That's absurd. The average person has a 6-year-old on the boat. The child drops the fish 10 times, and we don't let the 6-year-old hold the fish. We hold it in front of him and let Dad take the picture, and then ploop, it's back in the water with the Facebook shot for Granny. But, but the average angler is killing fish accidentally, besides on purpose, that we aren't killing. So if you don't understand that golfers don't go out there and take divots on the putting surface because they make their living playing golf, it's the same thing with us. We're not going to damage. We're going to do the least amount of damage we can to not only the gene pool but to the size fish, because we want next Wednesday's client to catch that fish. We want to repeat. We want the repeat catching of these fish more than the average angler that comes down here twice a year, or the guy who's fishing the circuits and only going to hit Steenhatchee on 4 or 5 tournaments, and then he goes off it and runs the circuit on at other ports.
Yeah,
it's absurd.
Mike makes that very, very comment. He says a guide needs those fish for his next client.
Not only do we need those fish, which I typically don't target those fish on the average day, but what those fish produce for the future is what we need.
Yeah,
what everyone needs.
That's right.
And by nature, guides are gonna be more conservationists because we rely on our fishery.
Yeah, I've heard it said a guide can only be as good as his fishery is.
Right.
So, and we are fortunate to have one of the better fisheries.
There's another
state.
tournament guy / guide right there. Asa catches some big trout.
He does,
and he consistently catches big trout. And I bet you, and he'll probably chime in on this, I bet you he doesn't have an issue with the catch photo release, and I know he doesn't because he fishes a tournament that promotes it.
Yeah, I think it's. The people are going to do what the tournament regulates.
He just chimed in. I release almost all fish over 20-inch.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Um,
and it's not an option anymore. When we used to keep it 1 over per person, it's a different day.
Sure.
And we're past that.
Yeah.
And so, you accept the change, you accept the principle. The principle is if the state made the decision, then someone some biologist said, this is necessary.
Well, here's the thing, and the biologist said this. The FWC said this. They have to have a balance. They are a business.
That's right.
They have to sell license, so they have to have a balance. If people chime in, they say, "Oh, we want to keep fish. We want to keep. We want that 1 over 19." Well, guess what? They want to please you. They want to please George. They want to please Brandy, Stephanie. They want to please him. They want license sales. And when license sales started going down, guess what? They got to look at something else.
Well, it's possible if we hang around long enough, they're going to disallow the tournament fishing altogether. if the tournament fishermen if the tournaments, the style and the formats don't change, they will be eliminated. It may not happen in my lifetime, but it will be eliminated.
Well, if you look across the state, more and more tournaments are going to this, and the reason the reason why I brought it up here is because last weekend we had 2 tournaments. This weekend we have 2 tournaments. The weekend after we have 2 tournaments, and guess what? They're all kill tournaments.
Yep. And I don't know about other parts in the state, but I don't know if there's any other areas in the state where they have as many kill tournaments as we do right here in the Big Bend of Florida.
Right.
And it's
we have a great fishery. We need to preserve it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean I don't disagree with anything that's been said.
Well, and to say that guides catch more fish. Go out there. You know, on today, there was 2 guides on the water that I'm aware of in our area. Two
because
guides.
y'all were the only one crazy enough to fish this. No, I'm just kidding.
But there,
in this wind,
there was 2 guides on the water. There was a lot more recreational boats. You know.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, when I'm out and it's a busy weekend, like I kind of have an idea where you're at, and I kind of have an idea where the other people guides are that are out here. But when I look around me, I don't see you.
No.
I don't see Evan. I don't see Pat. I see 40 other recreational fishermen around me that I know are catching fish.
Well, Saturday morning, I came in where you were at.
Right.
And you were like, I got to get out of here. We were texting back and forth. But you had 2 guides in that area, and there was 6 tournament boats within eyesight.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's overwhelming because since the COVID craze or the COVID crew, whichever, or COVID chaos, whatever you want to call it now, we have at least 20% more boats of uneducated, uninformed anglers that have new boats and they don't understand this fishery, but most of them don't know how to catch trout and redfish. They catch some, but they're not skilled at it because they have just recently joined the saltwater fishing enthusiasm.
Yeah, right.
And I don't fault them. I'm not criticizing
No.
them. But that is that much more damage being done when they tournament fish or when they get out there amongst the tournament fishermen because they don't understand the catch and the release. It's
Right.
not something that's in their wheelhouse.
I think a comment right here by Michael Ammon kind of proves the point on these tournaments. He says, when I'm not fishing one of these tournaments, I release nearly all over 20-inch trout caught and been trying to teach that others to release that recently as well, which is great. I agree. But he says when I'm not fishing a tournament.
Right.
So that means when he is fishing a tournament, and that's nothing on Michael. I love Michael. Michael's a great dude.
Oh, yeah.
Great fisherman. But when he is fishing that tournament, he's killing fish. I mean, he's going to kill fish.
Well,
Right.
You can
And
He's after that prize.
right, exactly after the prize, and so is all other.
And I don't
50 or
blame them
70
for
boat-
that.
Right,
If that's
exactly.
the format, do it. I get it.
And
another thing is Kenny's the best example that I'm aware of and Jay, but Kenny more than otherwise, he targets redfish over 50% of the time. He has clients that are not interested in catching trout or are only interested in catching reds, whichever way you want to put it. And so the redfish can be caught and released, caught and released, caught and released over and over and over, and it does not damage him because of the nature of the species.
It's a hardy
He's a
fish.
heavily scaled, hardy fish that
Yep.
can live and survive.
the only time you have to worry about redfish is when that water temperature is really hot.
Right.
When
But-
you get, but you're right. Most of the time,
But
they
what
are
I'm trying
good.
to say is to criticize guides when we're spending a third of our day, even me being a trout guide, I'm going to spend a third of my day red fishing.
Right.
I'm not interested. I'm not trying to catch trout. If I have I always leave a slot, meaning in my creel. If I have 9 trout, I stop trout fishing and go red fishing. So
That's right.
if we catch a big trout, he can count 1. If we don't have him, if we have him, I'm telling them, folks, we're not going to keep any trout. We're going red fishing, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And so the average angler and the average tournament angler is targeting the trout throughout the entire day of being there. whether it's an average angler or a tournament angler, they do not, and they are not saying, okay, now we're only doing this. And I don't know about you, Jay, you can answer it, but Kenny, what do you think? 25, 30% of your trips or more are redfish only?
Ooh,
Oh, mine are probably like 90%.
I'm probably 70%.
I'm close to
Okay,
probably
there you go.
90%. Yeah.
So again, it's about being specific, and the average angler is out there ATB fishing, anything that bites, and they're not specific, and they're not
Right.
targeting. I'll shut up.
Yeah.
I just want to touch on some of the, they got some people coming in and comment on here. Kevin White, who initially broached the subject, which you opened a can of worms. Okay, we were planning on talking about this already anyway, Kevin. But he said, just to clarify, I don't want to be on Kenny's hit list. I am absolutely in agreement with what you were saying.
Well, Kevin has fished with me a lot, and Kevin will tell you that I promote releasing those big fish. And sometimes he's wanted to keep them and wanted to argue with me, and I'm like, no, we'll keep this 19 and a quarter.
Sure.
If we catch a bigger one, guess what? It's going back. Get a picture.
Yeah, Asa says he said he 100% agree with photo release. I think all tournaments need to move in that direction. We have the technology. We have everything that we need to do that. I mean, all you got to do is purchase a board.
Yep.
And that's pretty much it, And so there's not like a whole lot of extra expense. And then if you're photo and release tournaments, I got no problem with those. Not zero, other than the extra people on the water. But
that's one reason I was hesitant on their fishing club to really. I fished it with A-Man last year. I think it was last year.
Yeah, they do a really good job. I mean, they do a great job.
But they were a kill tournament, and I would, they're moving in the right direction.
They did. They switched, and it's still the slots still kill, but the big trout is a CPR format,
right?
Which I 100% agree with. And I mean, most people, when you catch a slot trout, they're keeping it anyway. So I mean, that's
like Chase. Slot trout tastes better anyways.
And so Ace also touched on we need a January and February closure. That hard freeze killed a bunch of juvenile trout.
I'm going to be honest. I didn't catch near the trout this winter that I did. We talked about that before we got on here.
Yeah. It has its days, but as far as consistently,
I don't know if I'd say January and February, but
on your comment, Jason Johnson, on your comment on our guides, I can tell these folks complaining have never been out with our guides. They would know better.
Yeah, Jason's fished with me. We threw back a bunch of redfish.
Yeah, Asa, again, with the tourneys. The tourneys with the slot fish gives more folks a shot at winning. I agree with that 100%.
And same with catch, photo, release, because you can upgrade fish.
Yeah. I already mentioned Michael's comment about, releasing any fish over 20 inches when he's not catching or fishing a tournament. Asa says, I have clients who want to strictly target trophy trout. However, those same folks are all about good, safe releases.
Same here.
That's
same here.
Majority of the time, when you have a person that wants to target big trophy trout, they are 100% catch and release.
And same thing with redfish.
And redfish, too, yeah, for the most part. Michael, we didn't keep anything over 20 inches Saturday due to knowing that we needed a really big one to win. We weighed 5 slot trout and 1 red over 26. So there you go.
That goes back to what Pat said.
Yeah, exactly. Kevin says, y'all want to talk about seagrass moving right along?
Oh, yeah. That's a...
Nah.
Ooh.
That's more than a can of worms. That's a damn 55-gallon barrel full of worms right there.
So I would like to talk about that, actually.
Pat, if you need to run, don't let us hold you up, man. Okay. All right. Pat will be back in just a second.
I would like to touch on that because, we lost a lot of grass with the urchins. And there's nothing they could do. I mean, they ran their course. It's nature. Well, there's a lot more grass missing this year. And it's not urchins.
It was, go ahead. I think it's a combination of factors, but go ahead.
So if you go out the Keaton Channel right now and from the channel markers to the bird rack, there is a huge section of grass gone. It's sand. And, I've got my ideas. I'm not going to say. I've got my ideas. There just happens to be something that happens in that area daily, nearly daily.
Oh, I got you.
And then the prop scars, that doesn't help the grass.
Yeah, and then on top of that, we had Hurricane, was it Ian?
Yep.
That came and completely made within a mile of the shoreline bare ground for 3 days.
3 days. And I think that has a lot to do with our fishery right now.
I think that that was a contributing factor as well, because I noticed a lot of the flats that I pole, because that's very grass dependent on the flats that I choose to shallow water sight fish on.
Yep.
And I've noticed that the grass does not look as healthy this year as it has in years past. Now there's areas that still, has good grass in it, but there's definitely it's not as healthy looking as
one of our most productive areas, and Evan and I was talking about this yesterday, one of our most productive areas in the spring has no grass left, and him and I combined may have caught a handful of fish out of there this year. You probably know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just no grass, and I think that was probably Ian, and I may be wrong, but
yeah, I noticed that the shallowest parts of the flats were the hardest hit by that water drainage that we've had. As you get off into some of those deeper edges, the grass seems to be a little bit more healthy.
Right.
But
you say that, but from the
the
channel
area
markers, the
you're
bird
talking
rack
about,
is
right?
deep.
Yeah. It stays pretty deep. Yeah, it's real sandy out there. Yeah, I was noticing that the other day when I was running through there on a pretty low tide. I was like, man, is it always this sandy out here? I don't remember it being this sandy out here.
If you go out there in the evenings and catch pinfish with Pat, you'll see what's probably happening to that area, and it probably answer Michael Aman's question when you see this this healthy live clippings on the surface. I know some of it's shedding, but there's a lot of healthy clippings.
Well, there is.
The
Yeah, there is I've been noticing that the last few days is there is a unusual amount of floating grass for this time of year. Normally, it's not an issue that you're having to deal with, but it's.
I want to jump in here.
Go ahead.
The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission has continued since we begged them to do something in 2000, which is 23 years ago, to address the seagrass, protection of the seagrass, and they have done nothing. They have sat on their hands. They will not write legislation. They will not write permit. They will not do anything to prevent people from driving and doing the prop scarring. Now, if you measure the prop scars off of Keaton, 80% of them are 20 inches wide, and that doesn't come on an outboard, whether it's a contender or it's a damn 10-foot John boat. Those are made by diesel inboard motors, and we know what those are. And I'm not going to say any more than that about those prop scars.
Right.
But when you drag a device that's made to stay above the grass, and like Kenny says, create the clippings, and again, the state of Florida will do nothing about it. They won't regulate it. They won't enforce anything. Then we're going to continue to have the problems and the loss of grass that we have.
And they have a living to make too, but they have that living to make outside 3 miles.
Well, you and I, all three of us depend on them being able to do what they do.
Sure.
And what I'm trying to say is that unless the state changes the laws, then why should they change the way that they're behaving,
or at least enforces the
procedure?
laws?
Well, so far I have yet never seen anything that says thou shalt not, or if thou shalt do this, thou shalt be fined this. It's not in the laws.
Yeah,
It's not.
yeah.
It
Well,
doesn't exist. If you don't protect the grass, you don't protect the fish. It's the state's problem. It's their fault, and they will not take the responsibility to write the laws.
They have in a lot of other areas within the state.
They have, yes. And you would think that the largest seagrass bed in the state would be one that they would, think about trying to keep track of and preserve as well.
Right.
But
look at Mosquito Lagoon, Banana River.
They didn't protect them.
Right, and look at it now.
And it's over. That's what the state does. They wait till it crashes.
Wait till
it's
too late.
Run up there and do something about it, and it's too late.
Yeah,
and
it's too late.
We're going to have the same problem. They wait till it collapses before they will write anything.
Yeah, and you know that we appreciate that good, beautiful, clean water. And why is our water good, beautiful, and clean? It's because of all that
The
seagrass.
filters.
It filters, and if
Yep.
we lose that seagrass, our water's going to look like Cedar Key and Swanee and
St. George Bay.
St. George. Yep.
And,
that
and
all
guess
right
what'll
there.
happen? Guess what'll happen come scallop season?
There won't be no scallops. That's exactly right. So, and there'll be all the scallops will be the areas where there are seagrass. It's like a dadgum zoo out there.
So Asa talked about the hard freeze. I didn't see a lot of dead fish this year.
I didn't see a
you
lot
know,
of dead fish.
and I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I
Right.
didn't see
and
it here.
And I didn't see. You know, there wasn't a very many mornings where we had the super low tides with the super cold weather. I think I saw the majority of the seagrass kill was after Ian.
Right.
When you went out like a week after Ian, the grass was brown and
Yep.
just sloughing off the bottom.
Well, I mean, it was exposed for 3 days.
Yeah, I mean, it was just
No water.
literally when I would pole, every time I would pole, a huge clump of brown grass would come up off the bottom.
Yep.
And that was just that dead grass, you know, being released from that. So I think the combination of factors for this particular year, having that hurricane that drained the water for 3 days, and then the other issue that, you know, we've got, and then I do wish there would be some type of regulation for, you know, when FWC's out there and they see somebody, you know, running in a foot of water, kicking up mud behind them, that they at least, you know, say something to them, because, you know, that's obviously leaving.
I mean, I run shallow, but I'm not kicking up
Not
mud.
kicking up mud, yeah.
You know, I'm running my jack plate up. You know, I know my limitations.
Right.
And a lot of people, that goes back to the COVID boat buyers. They don't know their
Well, and most
limitations.
of
They
our
don't understand.
Most of our prop scars come from scallop season.
Right.
I mean, 90% of our prop scars that we have are from scallops.
You see a 30-foot boat with doubles and trips.
90% of our scars made by boats without
Oh, yes. Yeah.
a 20
I should have
foot,
clarified.
a 20-foot screw.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, a 20.
But the ones that aren't, you know, outside of that, the majority, you know, from recreational people is during scallops.
Yeah, it's during scallop season. So
No, that could be easily remedied by limiting the size horsepower to the footage of the water, and if they could write tickets and break it up. If you have a over 200, over a 150, you can't go in X amount of water.
You go to areas in the Keys, and you know there's
pole and troll zones.
There's pole and troll
Yeah.
zones. If you're caught,
Well, be careful what you wish for, because
Well, yeah.
well, I'm not saying that,
they'll
but
come for us.
But here's the thing: if they are caught even outside of a pole and troll zone, you cut up seagrass, you're getting a ticket.
Well, they don't.
It's not regulated
either
at
it
all.
doesn't exist.
I mean,
here
it's
or
not
they don't
regulated.
enforce it.
There is a website. I can't remember what it's called. I was on it the other day, but it's like the Seagrass Conservancy thing. And seagrass is protected in the state of Florida. Like all seagrass is
Right.
protected in the state of Florida. But they just don't protect it. I mean, there's nobody out there
They don't
actively
They
protecting
don't
it.
enforce
Right.
it.
Exactly. So anyway, we have delved into lots of different
Conservation.
topics this evening, dealing with, you know, conservation, and so Asa tarpon season is off limits on this show. They're
we
around.
did discuss them earlier
Yeah,
a little
they're
bit. We
around.
touched on them.
We talked a little bit about seeing some, but so anyway, I guess that's going to wrap us up. We've been going for a while. We started late, but we're going late. You guys got any last minute things you want to add before we sign off here? I got a couple things I want to touch on. And here's another, you know, tournament, the Optimist Club tournament coming up here. But there is going to be some food trucks, I think. Food trucks.
Mother Truck and Waffle.
Mother Truck and Waffles is going to be down in Keaton at the trading post on the day of the Optimist Club, that's coming up soon, right? That's Saturday, right? I knew it was like
Saturday.
the 1st May. So you won't find me on the water on Saturday.
No, I'm off this weekend too.
So
I lied and said I was booked.
You will not
I
find
told my clients I was booked.
us on the water on Saturday, so you won't have to worry about guides killing fish on Saturday.
No.
No, you won't have to worry about guides killing COVID boat owners.
But that being said, Mother Trucking Waffles
That's why I'm not going out there.
will be at the trading post this Saturday from 12 to 5:30 p.m. So if you're down here and you're fishing the tournament, or if you're just down here hanging out, make sure you stop by. You have any sales that weekend, Stephanie? She's sidewalk sale at the trading post. I wish we need to do like a walkthrough tour one day while we're down here, so you can see how much stuff Stephanie has packed into this tiny little store.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's
I heard she's
rather
opening up this back room.
remarkable. It's rather. I've never seen quite the usage of space. But if you're down here, it's worth coming in here. Just
I had
see
to lose weight so I could walk around in the store.
But it's not that packed. I mean, it's tight.
No, I'm
but
just
it's
joking.
like you could it's manageable
It is.
space, which is a feat in itself.
George loves it.
Mother's Day next Sunday, May 14th, Teacher Appreciation Week. You're gonna have what does this say? Graduation gifts. You got some graduation gifts and stuff in here. So yeah, definitely some stuff and great gifts. Like if you don't know what to get, like your mother or anybody for that matter, you can walk in here and find something. So it's really cool. I mean, a lot of cool different stuff that you might not find in other places.
E-gift cards?
Gift cards. You can shop online as well. What's the website if they want to shop online? Do you know off the top of your head? It's on the Facebook page. There you go. The link's on the Facebook page. As always, our other people that we are in every day, I know that like literally every time I come to Keaton Beach, I am in Keaton Beach Bums. And so they've got great food in there, and cook your fresh catch. If you do, come down here and you're staying at one of the houses and you don't feel like firing up the old grease pot, you can literally just drop your fish off at Keaton Beach Bums and they'll cook them for you.
Was it last week? We did that 2 weeks
So
ago.
How much is it a plate to do that?
Goes by the pound.
Yeah. What did we get? 2 pounds? 2.5 pounds. It was $13.
$13 to fry 2.5 pounds of. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I ate about an eighth
That
of a
is
pound.
awesome. So what is that, like $7 a pound? About $6 a pound, something
About
like
six-
that.
Yeah, somewhere there.
So like $6 a pound, you can have your fish fried
It's
at
like
Keaton Beach Bums.
$3 a plate because you're
Yeah.
not going to eat but a half a pound.
Exactly, that's an unbelievable deal.
Average person won't.
Yeah, for sure. So that's if I was down here, I would be taking it. I would never cook fish again. I would never cook fish again for that price. Are you kidding me? So that's at Keaton Beach Bums, and then not to mention, you can get burgers, you can get the fried chicken. I don't know if I've had better fried chicken than what they got in there. It's
Try his smoked chicken.
I'm leaving that chicken to you guys. I tried it again today.
How do I get the smoke? Do I got to go in there and order smoked chicken? Is that what I do, Pat? Just
No, you ask him.
Yeah,
you got to
just
call
ask 'em.
ahead of time. Do I have to
No.
order ahead of time?
Yeah.
They got it in the back?
Yeah.
See, I didn't even know
Ribs,
that.
smoked ribs.
Gosh, they. See, I always thought you just had to call ahead and say, "Hey, can
if
you
you'll
smoke
read the
me a
little
chicken?"
sign up there. No.
I've read it, but I didn't realize it was
Do you know how to read?
on
No.
demand. I was like, Anyway, I will be taking advantage of that as well. And then, Stephanie, you got Castaway Campground, is your newest accommodations, and you got 6 sites available on that. And you said it's on Jody Morgan Road. And you've got daily, weekly, and monthly sites available for that as well. So that's 6 more campsites that are available. So if you're coming down for scallop season, or if you got your own campsite. People are always asking. I've had so many people ask me, "Hey, where can I, camp out? Where can I bring my camper at?" So that's definitely an option there as well. And then, as always, you've got your rentals, KeatonBeachVacationRentals.com. Or you can call Stephanie at 772-284-0124. So I think that covers it. We
There's
good?
one question for Pat right there.
How old is that salty dog Pat?
We had to
Tim
get that
Moody.
one in. We had
Tim
to.
Moody, how old is that salty dog, Pat?
Salty dog. I don't know a salty dog. But if he wants to know how old I am, I'm old enough to know better.
All right. So that is going to wrap us up for Pat, Kenny,
Hey,
and
thank you.
myself.
Appreciate that.
We have had some
invite.
great conversation tonight, and Pat, I'm glad you were in the area when we hopped on. So until next month, like I said, I'm Jay. This is Kenny, Pat, Big Ben Fishing Report. We will see y'all next month.